So what are we most focused on at fifthwall in 2025? I think at a macro level, this is before getting into my specific answer to that, is it's important to note that it feels like, I think it's called a vibe shift, but basically there is a vibe shift afoot in proptech, and it's very real. The last 2 years, largely 2023 and 2024, were very, very difficult for anyone in proptech, or really anyone in venture capital broadly. But I would say in some ways, proptech was the eye of the storm because you had really challenged real estate capital markets, you had really challenged venture markets, and it was just a very difficult 2 years. What I think we are now seeing is the breaking of the clouds and the opening up of capital markets. And there's two very salient events that to me indicate this. The first is the ServiceTitan IPO. So one of fifthwall's largest investments, ServiceTitan, that we've invested in across multiple funds, that went public in late December. The performance has been fantastic. It is a massive validation of proptech. It is, I hope, a indication that the liquidity window and the IPO window is opening up for companies. The reason that's so important is the first area of focus for fifthwall, which is DPI. As a firm, we are focused on getting cash back to investors. And so this ServiceTitan IPO is part and parcel to that. It's a massive win for our business. It's a massive win for our investors. And we're excited to get a lot of cash back to investors. It also signals that I think the IPO window could be reopening. And these things tend to happen in kind of like waves. So actually looking back on the last time fifthwall had a bunch of IPOs, this is actually our 7th IPO across the portfolio. We basically had 6 IPOs, I think over a 15-month period. And we sent like over $500 million back to investors just in that period. And that was because the IPO window opened and it provided a lot of liquidity. And so what I hope is that this ServiceTitan IPO is a kind of indicator of what is about to come in capital markets. Right alongside that, another fifthwall portfolio company just had a fantastic exit. So Industrious, which is actually one of our firm's first investments, sold to CBRE, which is one of fifthwall's first strategic LPs. They've been with fifthwall since the beginning. So these two examples, I think, are just fantastic examples, and I think bode very well for the proptech market. The second thing is we're actually pretty excited for the next few years in proptech. And the reason is, somewhat selfishly, I feel like the firms that do survive and the firms that have endured these last 2 years are really well positioned, and their portfolios are really well positioned coming into this next cycle. And what I mean by that is that it feels like over the last 3 years, there were kind of like 3 strategies that venture funds used to survive. The first strategy was you didn't survive. You failed to raise a fund and you kind of just shut down and stopped operating. That was one thing that happened. The second thing is you bet the farm on AI and you just pray to God that the valuations work, which is another strategy that a lot of VCs followed. And then a third strategy, which is the one that we followed, is how do you make your business more nimble, more agile, and find ways to generate revenue to continue to compensate the best talent, because in the end, that wins. That was the strategy that we pursued. And honestly, a lot of funds that we're investing in proptech are just not going to survive these last 2 years. And so because we are, I think we feel really enthused and really emboldened coming into these 2 years. And that's actually why we are launching our next flagship fund. So our last flagship fund was also launched at a really opportune time. I mean, we got into some of the biggest companies in proptech just in that fund because of when it was time. That was Aurora Solar, that was Lesson, that was Procore. I mean, that fund was just a monster fund, but also just perfect timing in the market. And my intuition, and what we're very focused on at fifthwall right now, is the launch of our new flagship fund, which we believe is perfectly timed to this break in the clouds of capital markets when we think proptech is going to really start to perform again and become a very attractive asset class. So where are we focused? DPI, and we're enthused by the signs we see in our portfolio in ServiceTitan and Industrious. And 2, we are focused on taking to market our flagship fund because we think this is a fantastic moment for proptech and a fantastic moment to just launch this vehicle, because it's a lot of signs that this is when we're going to see a resurgence of proptech and the whole ecosystem.